What's up, Packers fans, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Draft brought to you by Badger State Brewing in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm your host, the publisher of Packer Report, Ross Uglem, and today's topic, another wide receiver, Florida State's Keon Coleman. Now, we talked a little bit during the Xavier Legette episode. How does Green Bay continue to diversify their wide receiver core? Talked about power forwards. Well, folks, this is a power forward. He's a ball winner. And I think, man, if there was, and again, I don't know that I would use Green Bay's, and we don't know what they're going to add in free agency. I've mentioned this, I think, on the show before. After Brian Gutekunst's draft, postseason pre-draft press conference, which I think, I don't know if he makes himself available again, but basically his wrap-up press conference. You mentioned that Green Bay is basically, allegedly, going to be able to do whatever they want in free agency. Now, whatever they want, there are levels to that, but I am interested to see whether or not like one or two needs, not necessarily gets taken off the board, but gets addressed in free agency so that the Packers can be a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more best player available with these 5 top 100 picks that they have, thanks to the Rasul Douglas and Aaron Rodgers trades. So we'll see how some of those things are addressed. And maybe this idea of a fifth wide receiver to this group is less of a luxury and more of a, well, he's the best player on the board. Take him. That's, take good football players. That's the point of the draft. He's a ball winner. He's a bucket getter, right? I mean, that's what Keon Coleman is. He's going to win contested catches for you. He's going to convert third downs for you. He's going to be a mismatch against smaller corners. And that's, the first thing that jumps out, 6'4", 215. And he's a young kid. So, he can continue to fill out. Very, very big wide receiver. And looks every bit as big as where Florida State listed him. He's a transfer from Michigan State. They listed him very similarly, right? So I would be very surprised if Keon's actually 6'2.5". Okay, that would be very surprising to me. I think if you're talking about, and we'll get into it. We will, as we do every day here on the Daily Draft, at least when we're doing prospect primers. We'll get into the Packers fit, but like he's super Lazard to me, right? He is what you would have in a big power forward, third down, red zone kind of wide receiver. He's that, but with some upside, some like prototypical X, top round 1 grade, depending on testing, super high round 2 grade. If the athletic testing doesn't necessarily go his way, I just think Allen Lazard should have probably been a 4th round pick or a 3rd round pick based on his production in the NFL. Now, last year didn't go well, but you just look at what Allen Lazard has produced. He should have been drafted. Okay. He was a top 100 guy for me, top 120. Like I kind of rated him, and I'm not pumping myself up, guys. I missed plenty, but I had Lazard as, a draftable player, right? A mid-round guy, and he has certainly returned mid-round value to the Packers, not necessarily to the Jets, but if they would have taken Allen Lazard in round 4 and he had the career that he had, you'd be very pleased. You'd be very pleased. But I think Keon Coleman is like the round 2 or the late round 1 version of what that player can be, which is super, super exciting. He returned punts, which is crazy to me. How many 6'4"? Now, he's not going to do that in the league. Let me be like super clear about that. But he returned 25 punts with, by the way, a long of 72. And I think that just kind of tells you the type of wiggle this kid has at 6'4", and probably when he fills out his frame, 220. And he's returning punts. Like Watson returned kicks. That was at the FCS level and was returning kicks, not punts. That there's so much more wiggle involved and short area quickness involved. Guys with great long speed can return kicks if they get an alley, right? I mean, you saw that with, I posted a ton of Christian Watson kick return stuff. And again, let me be clear. Keon Coleman is not going to, maybe he's really, really, really good at fair catching, and he becomes the Randall Cobb fair catch guy. He's not going to be returning punts for the Green Bay Packers. I can pretty much assure you of that. With that said, the fact that he returned punts and has that short area quickness for a guy that big, that's why he's potentially a round 1 guy for me and just rock solid for me in the top end of round 2. He is a excellent catcher of the football. 5 career drops on 184 targets. Catches it with his hands. Catches it with his hands. Does not catch the ball with his body, away from his frame. He's skilled, very, very skilled, very excellent ball skills. I enjoy watching him catch the football. And some guys body catch it. Some big guys, especially, like to box you out and body catch it. That is not Keon Coleman, in my experience, the tape that I've watched of him. My guy scores. Okay. He scores 19 career receiving touchdowns. Love Coleman in the red zone. And they're not all red zone touchdowns, but everything you would hope that a 6'4" receiver would be in the red zone, Keon Coleman is that guy. And I think that won't change at the pro level. I think if he ends up with the right team, with a good quarterback, I think he's going to be absolutely lethal in the red zone. Whether it's on the fade, which I hate, but just even boxing guys out. I don't know that production inside the 5, inside the 10 is going to change at the NFL level. I think it projects super, super well. I tell you what, the other thing, speaking of projecting super, super well, Keon Coleman is going to be 20 on draft night. So what's left to see, right? We talked about this with some of the other prospects. COVID, NIL, things like that are allowing guys or encouraging guys. No criticism here, but allowing guys, encouraging guys to stay in college for 5-6 years. That is not Keon Coleman. 2 seasons at Michigan State, transfer portal, probably a little NIL there to go to Florida State. Great run with Jordan Travis at quarterback. Jordan Travis doesn't get hurt. We might be talking about Florida State as national champs. I think Michigan is a better team, but we could be having that conversation. What's left to see? If he's 20 years old on draft night, what is left from Keon Coleman? How much better can he get? I'm willing to bet on that, and you'll see that certainly when you hear my grade for Keon, as he has sort of fallen down some draft boards. I'm willing to find out. Okay, I'm willing to find out with Keon Coleman. I think he's a prototype X. What does that mean? It means he's the bigger wide receiver, and he's the wide receiver on the line of scrimmage. Slot receivers, Z receivers, they go in motion. They can, they have that. They're off the line of scrimmage, so you can't really press them. I mean, you can get up to the line of scrimmage, but they even have that wiggle room. You can press man an X receiver because he's on the line of scrimmage, and you can be real, real close to that X receiver without being offsides. And that's why you see the X guys have to be big. They have to be able to beat press. They're kind of the primary receiver in a lot of offensive designs, but they are a specific type, a specific size, and a specific skill set. I think Keon Coleman can be that guy. Now, you want to get into the WR1 conversation? I don't know. I don't really care. I can get into a longer discussion about why I don't care, like what a WR1 really even means. The Chiefs don't have one. They might win the Super Bowl, right? I would argue the Niners don't have one. Ayuk and Debo are very good players. I don't know that either of them is WR1. Like, I don't know what that means. Just build a good team full of really good weapons, or be like the Chiefs and just have Spags scheme up, 13 points a game allowed in the playoffs, and have Pat throw to a bunch of no names and, be good enough to win. Lots of ways to get it done in this league. And having a WR1 didn't do Green Bay any good when Devontae Adams. And that's nothing that Devontae Adams did wrong. But boy, give him a WR1. It's like, man, they had Devontae, who I would say got to certainly a higher level than Jordy Nelson did, got to a higher level than Greg Jennings did, got to true like top 3 in the league status. Didn't help the Packers. I mean, they're a good football team, but they didn't get to play in February at any time, really, with him on the team. And I'm not saying it's Devontae's fault, because it's not, but like this WR1 stuff is just a dumb conversation. Anyway, now I've gone off on a tangent. Poor Keon Coleman here. Probably Keon doesn't care what I think, but we've lost the thread. We've lost the Keon Coleman thread. Really good yak player for a guy who's 6'4". You usually would think of a guy at 6'4", and I think this has to do with some of the punt returning stuff I was talking about before, right? With the ball in his hands, Coleman's really fun. And normally you just expect a 6'4" guy to kind of win and then get tackled, right? Or win and then he's already in the end zone, so it's a touchdown. That's what a 6'4", 6'5" receiver is for, right? Possession, even if it is downfield, but then kind of you go down, right? You get tackled or whatever. Coleman's fun in the open field. I mean, he can make guys miss. He's got a little bit of wiggle. He give you a straight arm. I like watching him in the open field, and is a better yak guy than most of the 6'4" receivers that you'll see. Really good player with the ball in the air, as I mentioned. When I'm talking about catching the ball, with his hands away from his frame, that's a skill of his. He's good at high pointing the football. The reason that kid has 19 touchdowns, especially when basically he didn't play as a true freshman, he did, but he 7 receptions as a true freshman. So we're really going off of 2 years of production and those 18 touchdowns in 2 years, high pointing the football, guys. That's what he does. And catching it away from his frame, securing the ball. Really like him. Jordan Travis had a ton to do with this, but he had 111.5 passer rating when targeted. We've talked in previous videos, NFL average passer rating, 89.0. So, he's 20% higher than the average passer rating when being targeted, meaning he's making plays when given opportunities, right? And then Jordan Travis is a very good player. Florida State's a good offense, but that 111.5 passer rating when target is something that definitely, I enjoyed. Versatility, guys. He played plenty of big slot, and I know Green Bay likes to use Christian Watson in the slot. That's been very successful. They have a full-time slot guy who's kind of that size that of the more normal slot receiver in Jaden Reed. And then Musgrave is a guy you can use in the slot as well. But you want to be able to line these guys up and give guys a break. Or, unfortunately, guys get hurt. Christian Watson gets hurt. Luke Musgrave gets hurt. Guys get hurt. Jaden Reed goes down. You might want to have Keon Coleman at the X and Christian Watson in the slot, or Christian Watson at the X, Keon Coleman in the slot. 119 big slot snaps in 2023. He can do it and has shown that at the Power 4 level at Florida State, excuse me. Just about said Ohio State. Thinking about Marvin Harrison Jr. still. Never going to be a Green Bay Packer. Very sad. But Keon Coleman could. Enough to make me, with those slot snaps, the stuff that I watched on film, I think he could do it if needed. He could be that Marcus Colston type in the slot, and it could be really, really fun. Really fun. Green Bay used Lazard a lot in the slot too. Cons, he might be slowish, right? Top end speed. A lot of his receptions over 20 yards, there were people around him. I mentioned, goes up and gets it, right? And that's great. But if you're not running by guys, it's tough sometimes to moss people in the league. I'm not worried about him in the same way that I was worried about like Treadwell and Harry, who can't get open, because he does and he can. And he's got more wiggle than those guys. But again, like if he runs a 4.51 or a 4.53, I'm not going to be that surprised. And if he runs in the mid 4.4s, that would be awesome. That would be something I don't see on film, and that would break some ties maybe going up. Although right now, I'm pretty sure for me, he's kind of alone, because I like him quite a bit better than I like the Malachi Corley, like Tez, Troy Franklin group. And then Keon's just not in the Rome Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr. group. So right now, for me, he's kind of like wide receiver 4 by himself, but he could move up my overall rankings and really solidify his grade, which we'll get to a little bit towards the end. A good combine. Here's sort of another con, although it's a pro basically. Is a good combine where he does run in the high 4.4s and has good change of direction numbers, good vertical leap, things like that. That could put him, I think, pretty solidly in the top 15, like after Neighbors or Rome, whoever wide receiver 3 ends up being. To me, with his tape, if he does have a good combine, I think somebody's going to take him before even Green Bay would at 25. And I don't know that Green Bay would at 25. I'm more hopeful that some of this like sliding down that you're seeing in mock drafts is sort of the way the league sees him. And I would take a corner or a safety at 25 and bring Keon to Green Bay with pick 41. That's what I would do. I still don't know that it's necessarily going to be a possibility, or B, anything that Green Bay would be interested in, because if he's not an athlete, they're probably not going to spend a top 50 pick on him. And if he is an athlete, he's probably going to be gone before they pick. So that's a con that's sort of not a scouting con, but like a Packers con. And maybe it doesn't even belong in this column. Not the cleanest in and out of breaks, and why I'm not as worried about like what he's doing at the top of the route as compared to like a Xavier Legette is he's 20. Okay, good. Jason Vrabel can teach him some of that. Okay, the Packers have a very good wide receiver coach in Jason Vrabel. The Packers have developed receivers, even gotten some instant impact, obviously, out of all 4, right? Watson and Dobbs had great rookie seasons. When Watson was on the field, he was really good. As he got healthier, Dobbs was good late in the season. Wicks and Reed had tremendous rookie seasons. Like Jason Vrabel's a dude. So if you have some, like, I don't think he has athletic limitations that don't allow him to be good at the top of his route. And he's not bad, but I mean, he could be better. He's 20. I'm willing to bet that that's okay. But right now, it's a yellow flag, right? Something that I've definitely noticed. Was not and here's the other thing I'll say, and this won't be a problem because uh, Green Bay quarterback is very good. Jordan Love has proven that. In the second half of the season, I would say, top 3 quarterback in the NFL from week 9 and on. That can be backed up by a number of statistics, but I'm just really talking about the eye test. Keon Coleman's a Green Bay Packer. He's going to play with a good quarterback. With that said, he was not productive when Florida State lost their quarterback. He individually kind of stunk out loud when Jordan Travis went down. And I get it. Like, your quarterback has a ton to do with whether or not you can catch the ball, whether the ball's in the right place, whether the quarterback makes the right read, whether the offense as a whole is even productive and moving the chains and doing the things that, uh, with all that said, and I got into a little bit of a ramble there, but with all that said, Keon Coleman was just not good when Florida State lost their quarterback. And I am saying that with, like, what I was watching on tape, which is watching every snap of the wide angle, watching him work. This is not just opportunities, right? He wasn't just getting wide open and not getting the ball. Like, I didn't like what I saw from him when Jordan Travis was gone. And maybe that's just being a little bit young, maybe a little bit immature, but that's a on the con list for me, is I did not like his play once FSU lost their quarterback. Packers fit. This is one thing they don't have. This is the power forward that they don't have. You talk about a dream 5 and a 5 that I would put up there beyond anything the Packers have had while I've been watching as a 5. Certainly there have been guys, above them. I think there was a Fab 5 once where, like, Corin Robinson, Donald Driver. There have been, and then of course, whoever the 5th guy was when Jones, Adams, Nelson, and Cobb were all on the team. I don't think Jones, Nelson, Adams, and Cobb and Greg were ever on the team, but, like, even Jennings, Jordy, Jones, Nelson, and whoever the 5th guy was, were, your Brett Swains, your Jarrett Boykins, as far as being 5 deep and just impossible to match up with across the board, Coleman, Watson, Dobbs, Reed, Wicks would be just bananas, just absolutely bananas. I will say, though, if he's not a super athlete, if he doesn't test super well, as a 6'4" kind of possession receiver, I don't know how much teams he's going to run down on. And you would want your 5th receiver, especially if your 5th receiver is a rookie, to go run down on teams. So that's a little bit of an interesting fit with the Packers. A team that didn't have as many good receivers as Green Bay has, which is a fun thing to say, right? But if, like, Coleman was going to be wide receiver 2 for somebody, right? If they had a guy, I'm trying to think of a team right now that has, like, a dude, and he was going to go be their second guy, Chicago. If he's your second guy to DJ Moore, he doesn't have to play teams. Who cares? He's a second wide. We're not going to have him play teams anyway. In Green Bay, you'd like to have a wide receiver 5 play teams. Would he even make it to pick 41? That's a question for me. I don't think they'll take him at 25. I would. I don't think they will. I think you'd have to take him at pick 41. Will he even be there? Does he make sense at 25? If he blows up the combine, he does. But then I think he's even gone before 25. And again, when was the last time the Packers took, a wide receiver in round 1? It was a big athletic wide receiver from Florida State. I think that's more of a coincidence than anything else, but fun to think about. Okay. It could make sense in the timeline, though, just so people understand it. The none of the Packers, as we've talked ad nauseum, none of the Packers wide receivers are first round picks. And what that means is none of them have the 5th-year option. So all of Green Bay's wide receivers are on 4-year contracts. Well, both Watson and Dobbs are going into year 3, meaning that after next year, after the 2025 season, they'll be free agents if Green Bay doesn't extend them. I think Green Bay might extend one or both, but if they don't, and you let Watson walk, which we're not cool with here. We're not okay with that. But if you let Dobbs walk, you're in a situation where it would be nice to have somebody that you drafted with 3 years left on their deal, which is a situation that you'd have if you took Keon Coleman, who would have 4 years left on their deal, starting obviously, or maybe 5 if they take him at 25, which I don't think that they would do. Overall, though, for me, perfect fit. Value, player, upside. Keon Coleman at 41 would be just a pants off moment for me, truly. There would just be pants in the air. Um, I think, like I said, value where a guy might fit, where he fits on the team, the type of does he make sense or does he not? Keon Coleman, if he at least just kind of clears the bars that he needs to clear at the combine, Keon Coleman at 41 would be pretty darn special. My grade, solid round one. I know he's fallen for, whatever reason. Okay. Like there are certainly groups that are not that high on Keon. I'm just looking here. PFF has him after Troy Franklin, after Ladd McConkey, after Devontae Walker, after Brian Thomas Jr., and as overall player 40, which, hey, it's right next to pick 41 that Green Bay has. But so there will be people that are, what I'm trying to say is there will be people that are lower on Keon than I am. 25th overall for me. Solid round one, 25th overall. I do think, though, there's a chance he goes up or down in my rankings based on what happens in Indy. Because if he tests as a 9, if he tests as a 90th percentile athlete, he's going to move up. He's going to solidify himself as my 4th wide receiver. And by the way, I have Odunze, Neighbors, and Harrison Jr. as very highly ranked players in this class. Okay, one of them's a blue chipper, and the other two are right there on the border. So just because I'm moving, Coleman up a few spots doesn't mean he starts to approach those guys, because he won't. But he will really solidify himself. And if he ends up, as a 7, as a 7.5, it's like, oh, he has athletic limitations. He's probably going to stay with a round 2 grade, but it's going to be more like 50th overall and not 25th. So very much interested in Keon's exploits at the NFL Combine. Very much watching what happens to Keon Coleman. Hey, guys, thank you so much for watching this video or listening to this podcast, however you're taking it in. How can you help us out? By for sure purchasing, and this is really me doing you a favor, by for sure purchasing the pre-order of the Green Bay Draft Guide brought to you by Packer Report. Guys, we're also going to do a promo code for you. Promo code DAILY, DAILY, is in the daily draft for 10% off. And that is the best Green Bay specific draft guide that you can find out there. I will promise you that. Check me out. I'm at Ross Uglem on X or Twitter. Check out our work on Packer Report. Become a VIP. Guys, the first month's $1. If you just want to check us out for draft season, that first month is $1 to at least just come and see what we're about at Packer Report. It's a great way to support me and my family, great way to support our writing staff. Super awesome. All right. Once again, guys, thank you. Like and subscribe, do all those things with the Pack-A-Day podcast. Have a great rest of your day, and go Pack Go.